So a big welcome to you, Toni Mount. I've known you for years, which has been, an honour. It's been really lovely being friends with you. And obviously you're a historian and novelist, but I want to sort of focus on the novelist side of you today. So welcome, Toni, to my channel. Congratulations on the release of The Colour of Darkness, which I think is book 13 in the
Yes,
Sebastian
thank you.
Foxley Medieval Mystery series. Book 13, that's amazing. And I must say that I'm a huge fan of the series. I've read every single one of them right from the start. I'm just going to read out the blurb for the new novel just to set the scene. Midsummer in medieval London should be a time of revelry, but for many there is nothing to celebrate. Death stalks the sweltering streets as plague raises its hideous head. Livelihoods crumble, and trust wilts in the heat. Fire, theft, and murder loom over the city. And once again, artist and reluctant sleuth Sebastian Foxley finds danger perilously close to home. When a beautiful young woman enchants the men of London, suspicion soon follows. The discovery of waxen dolls spiked with pins sends the city into a frenzy, convinced that witchcraft is to blame. With dark secrets lurking too near for comfort, Sebastian must unravel a tangled web of deceit and suspicion. Can he uncover the truth and protect those he loves before it's too late? Wow, exciting. I've been lucky enough to read an advanced copy of it, and it's wonderful. It's unput downable, if that's even a word, but I think it actually could be your best so far. I absolutely
Oh,
loved it.
really?
Yeah, I really, really loved it. But yeah, before we actually talk about the book and the series, I'd like to put you on the spot a bit. And if you could just share with us a bit about your background and what led you into writing this series.
Right. Well, I started out my working career in a science lab, which I loved. Science was my first love, and history was my hobby, mainly because we used to do O-levels in those days at school, and I failed one of my O-levels, history. Now, this wasn't entirely my fault. We had a teacher, a very elderly lady called Miss Craze. And, well, we called her crazy. And what we as teenagers didn't realise was she was beginning to suffer from dementia. And she taught us a load of rubbish. Her go-to history book was a quite famous book, 1066 and all that, which was written as a complete laugh. It was the 1970s version of Horrible Histories, but even less accurate. So this was only discovered when we all failed the mock O-level. So only those who were going on to do history A-level, the advanced level, got extra tuition, and the rest of us didn't because I was going to do science. So I don't like failing. So having failed, I took up history as my hobby and researched it for myself. So that was how I got into history. I actually suffer from a problem with my hands. They're very unsteady, and the condition deteriorates as I get older. So having left science to have children, when I wanted to go back, my hands had got worse. So I couldn't go back into science, which needed fine motor skills. So I did teaching of early years. And then I thought I would do an open university degree. By this time, I'm in my 50s. And I chose all the historical bits. And I loved it. And I got a first class honours degree from the Open University. And it went on from there. I then did a master's in medieval medicine, of all things, going back to my interest in science. And then for fun, I did an Open University diploma in advanced creative writing. I'd always written stories and belonged to various creative writing groups. But doing a university course, I had to knuckle down. Now, I'd written a trilogy in the 1980s. I was a housewife and mum to 2 boys, and going to mothers' meetings and things, talking about nappies and potty training and wheeling, and I couldn't do it. I had to have something else. So I wrote a trilogy on a very ancient computer, printing stuff out on a daisy wheel, which half your people will be too young to remember. But yes, so a trilogy on Richard III, as I wished it could be.
And is that trilogy, have you still got it?
Well, I've still got it. It's on CD.
Yeah.
It was on floppy disks, but
yeah.
We actually sent it away and had it put on a CD. I did send it to a few publishers, a bit daring, but they said they couldn't accept it because that wasn't what happened. Because I made a big assumption that Richard III survived the Battle of Bosworth, not as king, but he did survive, and that he was behind all the conspiracies against Henry Tudor.
Oh, I love this idea.
Well, this sort of supposition history was not fashionable in the 1980s.
No, but it is now, alternate histories. Yeah.
I must be the only member of the Richard III Society who was upset when they found Richard's remains under the car park.
Yeah.
Because that ruined the story.
Yeah.
But I've reread bits of it since, and I often think, oh, I like that bit. Oh, that bit's quite good.
Yeah, perhaps you need to rework it. Might be worth going back to as an extra project. I know how busy you are, though.
So it was the advanced course.
Yes.
With the Open University. The end of the year project was to write the first 3 chapters of a novel.
Okay.
And about 10 of the students, we continued on the students' forum after the course ended. swapping the next chapter and the next chapters of our novels, and some of them were fantastic. But that's what forced me to finish The Colour of Poison. Though my tutor gave it good marks, he disapproved of my hero.
Why did he disapprove? Going on to the next question is, can you introduce us to Seb Sebastian Foxy and his world, and the setting of your books? So that's the perfect link there. So why did he disapprove?
Well, he said, you cannot call a hero Foxley, because foxes are nasty and sneaky and horrible creatures, and no one will empathise with a hero called Foxley. So just for him, I changed their surname to Hartley. But once the course was finished, the other students agreed that Foxley was better.
Yeah,
so we went back.
Such a strange comment, though. That had never crossed my mind.
No,
That's odd.
because I think as Foxy, it's clever, inventive, curious creatures who sort of poke their nose into anything. So I thought that was quite a good name.
Yeah. So tell us a bit about Seb, your hero, the protagonist, and his world. Who is he?
Well, he's a scribe and an illuminator of manuscripts. And my idea was that his eye for detail would lead him to spot clues that other people miss. So that was the main thing. I also had him as a very unheroic hero. I wanted him to be ordinary, nothing special about him. In fact, he even had a bit of a disability. But in a way, Seb does all the things I wish I could do, because I used to paint, draw, embroider, sew, knit, crochet, all sorts of creative things, but the hands made that impossible now. So in a way, Seb is living the things that I wish I could still do, detailed paintings and that. So it's definitely a bit of me in Seb. He's also a bit like my dad. The visual look of him to me is not unlike my dad, as I remember, except my dad had brown eyes and Seb's got blue-grey. So an ordinary guy forced into the job, really. I mean, he's always telling Thaddeus that he's not going to do it anymore until there's another crisis and he gets dragged in. So,
and why are the books called The Colour of?
Well, that was just the title for the first book. It actually started out being called The Colour of the Moon, which was referring to actually find something that they think is the philosopher's stone. It's actually a piece of platinum, and they describe it as the colour of the moon. But of course, Seb, if you've read book one, The Colour of Poison, Seb solves the mystery of how his master died, because he finds a pigment that is bright yellow.
Okay.
And he realises it's orpiment, which is very poisonous pigment. So it's the colour of poison, it's quite yellow. So that was a better title. And then because Seb's an artist and colour is so important to him, he's always chatting about pigments and all that sort of thing. So I stuck with the colour of.
Yeah, I like it. I think it goes really well. Yeah.
Yes.
And the novels are set during Edward IV's reign, aren't they? So
Yes.
how did you go about researching the period? For example, knowing what happened when a crime was committed, you know, like the hue and cry and the procedure of investigating a crime. How did you research that? Was it something you already knew a lot about?
No, I didn't really know enough about it, but I've done a lot of research and there are some fabulous books out there. My shelf here, I've got Crime, Law and Society in the later Middle Ages, which has got lots of information. Forensic Medicine and Death in medieval England. You wouldn't think titles like that exist, but they do. And then I've actually got Mayor's Court rolls from London and the memoranda rolls of the City of London as well. And you can look in them and they will just say that John Smith was arrested and for trespass and fined this and this and things like that, which is a bit boring. But sometimes you get part of a story, and such as you might get that John Smith was released on the word character references, if you like, of 10 good men. And maybe it doesn't say what John Smith did, that he got released, but you can piece different bits of stories together. And I often get my ideas from that.
Yeah, I was just about to ask you whether reading those inspires you, you know, with a crime. Oh,
yes,
interesting.
Yes, I mean, all these little snippets of stories that as a novelist, you're allowed to put them together. As a historian, you're not. But a novelist can fill in the gaps, which I find wonderful.
Yeah, that's what I think I'd find hard, because I mean, actually, as a writer, I started off doing creative writing like you. I've you know, I was doing creative writing since, you know, I was 9 or 10, and I've got so many little manuscripts, you know, handwritten in very childish writing. And I've always thought, oh, I'd love to do historical fiction, but then I kind of wonder if the historian in me would kind of get in the way of the story and the details and that. So how do you balance sort of historical accuracy and details, I mean, details about clothing and that, with your storytelling? Because I think sometimes it can be a bit jarring in a novel when someone says too much detail. You seem to have the perfect balance. How on earth do you do that?
Well, I've had 13 books to put in any details I particularly like. So spread them out, little snippets of detail, I think, can bring it alive. But you don't want page after page of description. So, for example, in Rubies, Seb was at Westminster. And Westminster, we know, was a bit run down and generally filthy. So instead of doing a long, long description of it, he simply says that the furnishings were expensive, but Rose would have complained horribly about the standard of housekeeping, which sort of says it in just a few words that it's dirty, it's dusty, it's not much to recommend the place.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And going back to The Colour of Poison, so your very first one, did you write that as the first book of a series, or did you have no idea when you were first writing it that it was going to be a series?
I had no idea. It was just written for the Open University course. It only became a series, and we can blame your husband, Tim, for it. Because as it was about to go live on Amazon, he phoned me, wasn't even an email, he phoned and said, I've got to fill in a form for Amazon. And it says, is this book a one-off or part of a series? What is it going to be? Are you going to write another one? So I just sat there and yes, I'll write some more.
So he put you on the spot. It's all my husband's fault.
Yes. So that was it. So anybody who's fed up with Seb Foxley, you can blame Tim.
Yeah, just to explain that Tim owns Made Global, who are lucky enough to publish your series. I didn't realise that it was all his fault. Okay, yes. Blame Tim.
Talk about on the spot.
Yeah. So, well, that's really interesting that you had no idea when you wrote the book that it was going to continue.
No. No, I thought there was scope for another couple of Seb stories, that he would get the girl, and that his brother was available to cause more trouble, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But as it's gone on, as a historian, I'm afraid I've taken liberties. I invented a city bailiff. There was no such thing as a city bailiff. Policing London was very piecemeal. Each ward of London had an alderman and a beadle. And the beadle was referred to as the alderman's eyes. The beadle had to report to the alderman once a month, I think it was, and give a list of ne'er-do-wells, prostitutes, troublemakers, thieves and hedge breakers, as they called them. And then the alderman had a month to act upon the information with the constables of the ward. Well, obviously, you've got the whole of London that have adventures. You really couldn't have all these murders in one ward. So I spread them out, and to do that, I needed a city bailiff to kind of oversee this. Now, the only the only law enforcement that ran throughout London was the night watch. They were called the walking watch, the marching watch, because they could cross ward boundaries and police the whole city. And I cannot find out who ran that side of things. I can only think it was the mayor himself, but all the mayors ran their own business and did other things. So I invented a city bailiff to
Well, I think
totally.
Agatha Christie would argue with you about how you can actually have murders in the same place. If you think how many murders happened in St Mary Mead with Miss Marple.
Yes.
Yeah, I didn't realise you'd invented him. Oh,
Yes.
interesting.
Well, it's Seb's way in to all the murders. I mean, if there was a murder not in Farringdon, the ward where he lives, he would only hear about it as gossip and stories. The news would get round, but he wouldn't be involved from the start, which is why we've got Thaddeus Turner ever in need of someone to be his secretary and clerk.
Okay,
So
thank you.
Yeah.
And do you map out your stories in advance before you start writing, or are you one of those novelists that kind of lets the characters kind of guide you? You know, how structured are you? I mean, I kind of think with a series that's this big, do you have like some kind of storyboard where you've got the characters, because you have to try and remember things that were in past books and who's related to who, and for continuity, it must be really complicated.
Yes, I mean, Seb's family relationship's much more complicated than mine. But I don't map out the stories. No, I belong to the Stephen King school of writing. He says he comes up with a character and a situation, winds them up, lets them go, and the characters tell him what happens. And I write like that. I sometimes have an idea of bits that are going to happen along the way, but not the details. One of the early books, a reader reviewed it and said that she had worked out who done it by chapter 3. Well, I don't know how she did that, because in chapter 3, I didn't know who'd done it. So
no chapter outlines, no nothing, just so no chapter outlines.
I write chapter outlines when I've written the chapter, so that I know who's where, what the date is. In fact, I had a terrible situation with darkness. I'd written it all, well, up to about chapter 16, and I went back to check something and discovered I had missed out a day of the week.
Oh no.
Which doesn't sound too terrible, but I had to go all through it, and putting this day of the week back in actually made a day when something important happened in the workshop a Sunday. So they wouldn't have worked on a Sunday normally. So I had to rejig everything. I had to rewrite it, the first 16 chapters, because I think I've gone wrong in about chapter 3. So I had an awful lot of rewriting to do for that. But that was because I'd actually lost the list that I was keeping of who was doing what, where, on what day.
Okay, so you keep that list, but you don't know where
Yes.
the story's going. Okay.
Yes, but I write it after I've written the chapter.
Right.
So
Oh, okay, just to keep things, yeah. Oh, okay. And how long does it take you to write one of your Seb Foxley novels?
It used to take me about 8 months, but Darkness took a lot longer, partly because of the complete rewrite, and I'm afraid the hands are getting worse, so the typing's getting slower. The next book is going to be a long time too, because I've taken 3 months out while the house was being virtually rebuilt. So I did try to work elsewhere, but it didn't work. I need my PC. I couldn't do it on the laptop. That's too fiddly. The icons are too small for me to click on. So about a year, I would say.
Okay. And are you working on one at the moment?
Yes.
Okay. So can you give us a bit of a teaser without giving too much away? Well, in fact, if you're working on it, you might not know.
Well, I can tell you a little bit of what it's about.
Okay.
And anyone who reads The Colour of Darkness has got the prologue for the next book at the end, which is a bit of a teaser. Yes, it's about a murder using a gun. Now, I've been thinking about this for a while, and I recently read a novel by Bruce Holzinger called The Invention of Fire, and it was about firearms, and he's actually got small guns being used in the 14th century. So that's a century before my books. So guns existed, not just cannon, but handguns. The first recorded murder using a handgun in London was in the 1520s. So, I mean, there were accidents with guns, but the first deliberate assassination, if you like, was of a merchant in London in 1520. So I started doing some research, and I came up with just one line. Thomas Nandyke, one-time chaplain physician to the Duke of Buckingham, had a little gun of brass among his personal possessions when he died in 1491. So that's 9 years after the setting for The Colour of Malice. So I've been researching firearms, and in fact, we're going on holiday to Germany in October and going to Augsburg, which was the centre of handgun manufacture in the 1480s. So
you're going to be dragging your husband Glenn to different museums and things.
Well, he decided we were going to Germany, and the flight lands in Munich, I think. And I said, oh, that's quite near Augsburg. And I explained to him, all right, we'll go there. So,
oh, wow. Yeah. I love that title as well, The Colour of Malice.
Yes.
And how many more books, this putting you on the spot, do you think there will be in the series? Have you got lots more books in your head for Seb? Lots more adventures?
Well, I have a contract with you for another book after Malice, and that is going to be set at the time when Richard, Duke of Gloucester, becomes King Richard III, and the prince is in the tower.
Oh, brilliant.
Now, somehow Seb has got to be involved in that, obviously. So that's going to require a bit of thought. it's going to be called The Colour of Treason. And that actually finishes the contract. So I'm not sure.
I think Tim's just going to have to persuade you.
Yes.
Because there's got to be, you've got to have lots more ideas, I'm sure. You can't leave it there.
Well, the only way to leave it really is to do what Arthur Conan Doyle did and bump off the sleuth.
Yes.
So obviously Seb isn't going to live to be 103. So perhaps maybe he will come to grief.
Yes. But of course you don't know yet because he's not speaking to you. Your character's not speaking to you yet.
No.
Right, final question then, and we're going to put Seb Foxley aside. I'd like to think about you. What's one fun fact about you that people might not know? Like, do you have this exciting other hobby or something?
Fun fact about me.
Yes, I'm putting you on the spot.
You really put me on the spot. I don't do much fun. No fun facts.
Like, are you a star baker or I don't know?
Can't cook to say. Well, I'm writing a series of short stories which are based around a couple of traffic cops, which is something a bit different.
That's very different.
Of them zooming up and down the M1 motorway and coming across a number of things, and there are funny situations which I mostly get from watching a program on TV which Glenn loves called Police Interceptors.
Okay.
And they've dealt with all sorts of things. So
because that's another avenue of research, isn't it? The modern day police procedures and
yes, police procedural. I don't know how anybody writes modern police stuff, because if it's true to life, they'd spend most of their time filling in forms.
Yes, bureaucracy, yeah.
It's all paperwork, it's all politics. It would drive me nuts, which is why I generally prefer any sort of crime solving to be in the past. When people like Sherlock Holmes just muscle in and all this and this, and no paperwork required. But the police interceptors, they're not detectives, they're not solving mysteries. They're chasing down the bad guys and putting them in handcuffs and taking them to the cop shop, and then they hand them over. So they do paperwork, but it doesn't have to come into the stories.
And I suppose if they're short stories as well, you don't have to go into all the detail.
Yes, there's short stories that I write for my creative writing groups. We all read out something, so nobody wants 10 pages. You know, it's 3, maybe 3 and a bit, isn't that it?
Oh, interesting. Thank you. So well, that is a fun fact. I like that one. Oh, thank you so much for joining me, Toni, and congratulations again on the 13th Seb Foxley book, The Colour of Darkness. It's available as a paperback and Kindle. And those people who have Kindle Unlimited, which I absolutely love, you can get it free on Kindle Unlimited, which is brilliant. So yeah, huge congratulations and thank you so much for joining me, Toni. It's been lovely having this chat with you.
Well, thank you, Claire. It's been lovely chatting to you. So, yeah, keep up the good work at your end.
Oh, thank you.